Well, welcome to a new Harry's Garage video, and this one is all going to be about a McLaren and based around my 650S, which I've now owned for 6 months, and during that time I've done about 3,000 miles. We've been on road trips on it, I've used it locally, and I've also had it serviced. So I'm going to go into details of getting this car serviced. I'm going to discuss warranties, and I'm also going to look at all the things I've learned in that 6 months in researching McLaren and whether it was a good idea to buy one and why 6 months on, do I still think it's a good thing to buy? Anyway, let's go and have a closer look. Now, it's interesting, when you buy a car like this and you've been searching, you can't help but carry on searching, and you shouldn't do it. You shouldn't keep looking at Auto Trader and say, oh, I wish I'd bought that. But I have to say, having bought this one, I'm very happy I bought this one. I have not seen another one. I thought, oh, if only I'd waited a month. I wanted a great colour. I thought initially I was going to have volcano orange until I spoke to Thornley Motorsport, and it's quite a difficult paint to match, and you could sort of see people had oversprayed, and I sort of went off it. I do still like it, and the volcano red in particular, but I wanted this amethyst black if I could find it, and obviously I found it. And the other thing I wanted was a Spider version of the 650S. And because I just think it gives you two cars in one. And then one of the big advantages of going for McLaren is, as you know, carbon tubbed, and therefore the torsional rigidity of it is immaterial whether you've got the Spider version or the coupe version. And that's not always the case. If you drive a Ferrari 458 Spider or a 488 Spider, you will be surprised how wobbly they are. They're nothing like McLaren, that you just can't tell the difference. There is a weight penalty of about 40 kilos, but I will accept that over this because it's lighter anyway because of the carbon tub. So, very happy with the choice of this car. And I was thinking about getting the wheel colour changed as well, because go back to the silver when it was an MSO display car and it did the rounds. I now think they just suits it, and I'm not that bothered at all about the wheel colour. I just think it looks good. The other thing I noticed when I was looking out for one is you do get corrosion on McLarens, and the places to check, I'll lift the bonnet in a moment, but I'm going to check where this one actually does have McLaren. This is an alloy wing, and part of the weight saving things, they don't have the best anti-corrosion protection because it's heavy, and you will see some corrosion just there. And because it's aluminium, I'm sort of living with it. I will get it corrected, and it's when, if you've chosen volcano orange and things, that is why you quite often get a mismatch, because people are respraying areas and it's a flipping hard paint to get done. It's hardly noticeable. I know it's there and I know the cause of it, and I'm not going out on the salty roads and things. It's on the to-do list for me. I'm not that particular on it. Other things on it, well, this one is smothered in carbon, which makes me nervous, but it's someone before I owned it put PPF right through it, so it is all protected. But that is always my worry when there's so much carbon on show. If it gets chipped, it's a nightmare to repair. The other thing you just check is how tight your headlights are. There is a little bit of wobble on this one. Some of them are almost falling out. This one is okay, and it's a little peg that fits on them. But yeah, again, it's not really an issue on this one. This is another peculiar one of this particular car. Very few I've seen actually have that sort of carbon arm that the actual wing mirror hangs on. I think it's a delightful feature. It's just great design on it. I had this glued back down as well, this window surround. That's quite a common thing. But yeah, overall, apart from that front, it's very good. Also, you get a sort of road rash on this bit. This car's dirty, but if that was clean, you will notice some chippings there as well. This has got PPF protection on it, but just there, just quite often you see damage on it. And I've got over this McLaren Special Operations. It was very loud and proud, along with the yellow belts. Now, I just think, I don't care. I don't really see it. It's my car. It's sort of unique. McLaren put it on there, MSO put it on there because it was their display car. It's sort of understandable why it's there. What else do we look at? Another place I noted corrosion on when I was looking at cars is just around this exhaust area. These seem to like corroding, and it just looks really scruffy. But this one, no corrosion on it at all. And also, I'm really chuffed, it's got this GT3 rear diffuser in carbon, much more aggressive than the standard car. But I've got to remember, I did pay more than I could have paid for a 650S to have this example. It was 9,900 miles when I bought it, and I think it was 107,000 I paid for it, which was probably 10,000 over because of the colour, because of the MSO history and the various carbon bits you see here. Now, just before we get to servicing, one other thing I want to discuss is warranties. You can get a McLaren warranty on this if you have your car serviced at McLaren dealership and they've done the inspection. The price, I didn't actually get the price. I was advised it was around £6,000, £7,000, that sort of amount. And I decided not to do that because I just felt this car is now 10 years old. And at 10 years old, I thought it was time to probably visit a specialist. And the more people I spoke to, the more that seemed a good idea, because some of the service costs you hear on McLaren are really quite lumpy, but there's a good reason for that. Looking at the service bills, I've got a full history of this car, looking at the service costs. There are known items on a 650S 12C or the Super Series like this. They have this proactive chassis control that you know you have to repair. And one of those is something called the accumulator, which is in the suspension and no anti-roll bars, and it's incredibly clever. And there's a real advantage to having that suspension system on your car. The 570, the Sports Series, didn't have it, nor McLaren GT have it. They have conventional suspension, anti-roll bars and things, but not so on 650S. And the accumulators are a wearing part. And I ended up going to V Engineering to have the service done on this because they can check the pressures in his accumulators. Accumulator, when you fit it to the car, 7.5 bar pressure inside it, and that helps the ride comfort. It's an extremely clever system, but from the moment you fit those accumulators, the pressure drops and you get 3 years, 4 years out of them, and then you have to replace them. And they're roughly, including VAT, about £300 a corner. So you've got a £1,200, £1,500 bill with fitting every 3 or 4 years on a McLaren. Not sure if they're covered by the warranty. I should have checked that. But V Engineering, the guys who run it are ex-McLaren, and they know this car absolutely inside out. They can fit a new type of accumulator that does exactly the same thing, but it can be repressurized. So suddenly, once you bought one of the ones with a valve on it, then all you do each service is you get it topped up to 7.5 bar. They did check the accumulators on this car when the service is done, and it's at 4.7 bar, and they would need changing at 4 bar. So it's something I'll be doing next year. Another little things they were showing me was the lithium battery is fitted this car for lightness. They fitted them all the way through. Surprised me because it looks from the outside like a conventional lead acid battery. But if you change the battery, they're about £1,700 when you have a battery issue on one of these cars, but they can retrofit a regular battery if you want to move away from lithium. This one seems to be, the health of the battery seems fine. I have a lithium charger that came with the car, C-Tech charger. It's always plugged in. It's a non-issue at the moment, but some of them do get a voltage irregularity, and it's time to change your lithium battery, which is £1,700, £1,800. Other things they get the coil springs crack on them. And you think, why have you got a broken spring? When looking at it, it depends on the amount of corrosion. It's at the bottom of the spring, a little bit of corrosion there, and that's where it cracks, and it just sits slightly down on a corner. This car, all checked out, is absolutely fine. If you're at a McLaren dealer, if you get a crack spring, they replace the whole suspension leg and put another one on because it's easier than stripping it all down to get the spring out. That is sort of where the service cost goes ballooning up if you keep with regular dealership, because it's a massively expensive unit, the whole suspension leg. Go to V Engineering or Thorley Motorsport, they will replace just the spring, much cheaper doing it that way. Also, there's a seal in the gearbox that can go on them, and McLaren, again, if you were at the dealership, they just put a new gearbox in it. The specialist guys know how to repair that seal now, and so it's a much more cheaper option. You're not paying out what you would be charged at a McLaren dealership for a new gearbox. So all in all, I just thought it was the time to go to a specialist to look after this car. And they go right through it. They know it absolutely inside out, and they spotted that the ride height wasn't quite right at the front, so they did a full geo on it, and it turned out that the lift mechanism was lifting up all right, but wasn't going down to the correct position, and there was a sensor on one of the corners that had been wrongly adjusted, basically, and it was telling the car it was not at the correct ride height, and it was correcting it itself. So they did all that stuff I have no knowledge of, but it's great now. It's all at the right ride height, wheels are pointing in the right direction, so it's all good. And the cost of the service with, let's have a look, annual service, engine filter, geo-check, I replaced the wiper blade, and they sealed around the windscreen, was £1,022, including VAT, so around £1,000. And looking at the service schedule on it, it's all fairly straightforward, each individual service. The weird one, every 2 years it says renew wheel bolts. I've no idea if they actually do that. Renew clutch oil and filter every 20,000 miles, this probably hasn't actually done. Renew transmission oil and filter every 40,000 miles. And it's not until you get to 60,000 miles when you renew spark plugs and fuel filter. It's amazing how long these cars carry on. Another thing I just want to talk about is whenever you buy a McLaren, almost the first question you get asked is it broken yet? And I just wanted to research that. So why have they got this reputation for breaking a lot and letting you down and crazy maintenance costs? And it's really interesting. You talk to owners, you talk to the specialists, what happened in its makeup. And the general feeling is 12C was launched before it was actually ready. It wasn't fully cooked when it first came out. And there were all sorts of issues with those very early cars that came to UK and Europe. US got the cars later, and they had sorted them out by then. So it hasn't got this reputation nearly as bad in the US that it got in the UK. They then basically sorted, and the 650S is deemed a sorted car. By the stage they got this, they had full updates on the infotainment unit in it, a whole load of chassis regrades, and the engine in this is actually the P1 engine. The only difference with it is the block has mounting for the electric motor on the P1. This doesn't have that, but heads, pistons, crank, exhaust, everything is the same as the P1. The only difference between them is actually the bigger turbos on the P1 over this 650S. So the P1 is rated at 727 horsepower, 531 pound-foot, the 650S 641 horsepower, 500 foot-pound, and the extra 900 newton meters total comes obviously from the electric motor on the P1, but it means this 650S is pretty low stressed. I asked also why, Steve at V Engineering, why I just felt it didn't down change as quick as I remember McLaren. So I have a go in the 750S or 720S, and it's the rotational mass of the 3.8 engine in here is higher, and the revs don't fall quite as sharply as they do in the latest 4-litre 720S and 750S. So that's just a difference between them. But I just think this is a very sorted car. And the 650S, if you look, is known as a very good car. Don't have the issues that the early 12C had, and they don't have the issues that the first generation of 720S had at launch. There was all sorts of things, and that was 2017. And what was happening in the background, McLaren dramatically increased the volume of cars they were producing and selling because they introduced the Sports Series as well. And if I look at the numbers, this is 2015 cars, so 14, 15, they were making around 1,800 cars a year. 750S came in 2016, 3,280 cars, and then 2017, 3,340 cars, and then a 44% increase in production in 2018 to 4,863 cars. And it's around that period with a 750S that had additional ECU monitoring on it. It was a much more complicated car than this, and they had the Sports Series. And that was a nightmare for McLaren and dealers and cars coming back and overproduction, basically. End of 18, the 720S Spider arrived, and by then they'd got it sorted. All the teething issues were out the way. And then COVID hit 2020. And now production, I think in 2020 it was only like 1,600 cars. Now it's around 2,000 cars. So they've dramatically cut production, but they've got the quality right up. And you don't really hear of issues with post-21, 22 cars. 750S has an amazing reputation now in the market. So it was that period of overproduction and new tech on 720S, I think, is where all the issues came and the nightmares, and also with the Sports Series as well, complicating it. So that is another reason why I picked 650S. I think it's a sweet spot, and I wanted this look and I wanted the colour. But there's one other thing I love about this car, and to just show you that, I need to take it outside and take it for a drive. Now, there's a few things I want to talk about in here. One, comfort seats. Whatever reason, I didn't get on with them in the McLaren 750S, but I really get on with them in this car. So I don't know if anything's changed. I've got memory seats on here, all really good. I would have liked the Alcantara trim actually, but it wasn't available. That's the one thing I would have quite liked in here, but this is wearing well. For a 10-year-old car, it absolutely does not look 10-year-old in here. It's all very nicely done. It's all got the carbon, so I'm pretty happy. But I will change the wheel or some of the actual bit you hold. It's perforated leather, and I really don't like that. But that's an easy change to do, and I'm talking to people to get that done. The other thing, I'll just go out of here. I'm in auto at the moment, and yeah, it's just how it sets off. It's easy when we're talking like this. I have done a noise test in this car, and it comes out at about 77 decibels at 60. So not uber quiet, but also not crazy noisy 911 like. But so pretty easy for cruising in and eating miles. Another thing what came as a surprise, one, I've mentioned it before, I can Bluetooth, I can listen to podcasts, etc., without having to connect my phone via a cable. And also, if I have it in the navigation form like this, it gives me the speed limits up there. This is 2015 car, so it's not got a camera at the front, and it's not got all the annoying things you have to turn off. But I do like, it does do a speed warning, and it will warn me. I can turn it on and off, and I've got it set to speed of 110% of limit. So 10% over the limit, I get this lady says, "You're over the speed limit." And I don't know, I quite like that. It's just one of those things. It's so easy as you in a car like this to drift beyond where you should be going on speed. So yeah, another surprise. But I suppose it's when I hit, yeah, I'm just going to my favourite road. I'm just going to put it into active. And yeah, you see that speed of change, it's not as fast as you would expect it to be. You can change the sound it makes. In track, it's got this sound generators, you can hear it. It just adds depth to it. And this right hand one, I adjust the sort of the setup gearbox, how quick that reacts, and that sound. Or I can have it in sport like this, and it's quieter. But what I wanted to show you was my favourite thing on this car at this time of year. It's grey, it's miserable. It's, what is it, 6 degrees outside, and it's so sort of usable, this car. You are tempted to take it out, and it's been a convertible, you don't feel like putting the roof down. But if I just put the rear window down, It just adds that engagement, tells me I'm in something special. No particular draft coming through, there's a slight bit of draft, but I've got a heated seat on. I'm very happy in this mode. I can put it all back to utterly normal. Yeah, so it's my favourite feature on this car. No, it's not my only favourite feature, but I really like the way you can lower the rear window and just get a sense of outside that engagement, that sound, even though it's a McLaren sound. It's not a sort of Hurricane V10 howling behind you, but it just gives that connection. And that's in utterly normal mode at the moment. The other final thing I want to say on this is value for money. I sort of started looking at McLaren because I really like carbon tub, the purity of the controls, the steering. Each time I drove one I thought, they are fantastic. And I see it as like a 911 evolution. That, like with 911, you're never quite sure which one to get, but there's a constant there. There's rear engine, there's handling, there's the steering feel, there's the size of it. There's a lot of things to like about 911, and I feel now the same with McLaren. There's a lot of things to like, and they're evolving their V8 mid-engine supercar, and it's getting better and better with each generation. I've settled on 650S because price point to value to what it delivers. This is still a 5-point-something 0 to 100 mile an hour car. The slowest McLaren made, there's a top speed of 199, that's the 540C. All the others are over 200 miles an hour. They are ballistically quick. So I don't feel the need to go to 720S. It's a better car, but it's not actually rewarding me to the things I actually want. I think this is better looking, although I do like how they do the door side. It's the face of the 720S that upsets me, and it upsets me a bit with a 750S, but it's marginal. It's the value of 650S. 85, 90,000 gets you a great example. The cheapest 12C is probably 60,000. This is 85, 90,000. What more do you want from a car? Fantastic ride because it's got the proactive chassis control, incredible performance, foldy roof. If you go to Ferrari, it's interesting, if you look on Auto Trader, there's 15 650S's for sale. If you go into 488, there's 90 something for sale. And the other thing about the 488 is it's almost twice the price in Spider form over a 650S. It's a great car, but it's not that great compared to this. So that's an easy choice. I think, yeah, 720 Spider, they're 160-ish, so you're going to be paying, I would have to pay at least 50, 60,000 more than this to get into that. I'm quite happy where I am, and then a 750S, well, that's 250, 260, so a very different price point. And also with McLaren now dramatically reducing the number of cars they build, I think residuals are going to firm up because there just aren't that many McLarens to choose from. The thing about Ferrari, a lot of them were bought because they're trying to get the special series, so there's unnatural number of cars sold beyond demand because they're on this crazy treadmill trying to get the ultimate car. That doesn't happen at McLaren. People order McLaren because they want one, so and the numbers are lower. And now we've got these specialists. The maintenance has got that much easier. Everybody's understand them. All the initial issues McLaren's had from factory have been sorted, and even the 720S now is 7 years old. The older ones, 8 years old. They're sort of sorted. So we've got this great choice, and I like the way they've gone to 750S, and I'm intrigued what they're going to do next, because presumably W1 is going to donate its engine to the Road Series cars. But yeah, there you go. That's my summary on this car. I'm just going to hoof it out of here. Whoa. That is extraordinary, the punch this thing's got when it's lit. That's the other thing. It is monumentally quick, but you don't have to use it. Lots of people say, why do you get out of a mirror? It's got loads of power manual. I don't need another manual in my life. I've got a garage stuffed full of manuals, and it's my choice if I use all 100, 650 horsepower. Most of the time I'm using 300, 400, 500, but the punch is hypercar. I can step out of things, get into this thing. That is an extraordinary bit of kit. So there you go, that is my 6 months with 650S. As you can probably tell, it's staying in the garage. It's going to be one of the very last cars that leaves the garage because it rewards on so many levels. So I hope you enjoyed this video, gave you a deep dive into McLaren, what I've learned on this journey. If you did, well, keep watching, keep subscribing, more videos coming on very soon.